This program is part of the Cosmic Potato Podcast Network. For more shows like this, visit our website at cosmicpotatonetwork.com.
Watching television, watching television. Watching television, watching television. I need all the image, I need all the sound, I know the info right into my mind.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Trial by Pilot. This is the show where we judge an entire series of television and the work of hundreds on one episode. I'm Bill Lynch.
I'm Elizabeth Lynch.
And I am Ken Reed.
Welcome, Ken.
Hi, Ken.
Thank you.
Good to have you here.
Like being here. Thank you.
Ken is one of a few people that urged us to do the Battlestar Galactica pilot.
Yes.
Big fan of the show, right?
Very big fan.
And some of you may have seen our live stream we did earlier this week. You could probably find that on our Facebook page. Ken, that's probably where you watched it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This will reach more people. So
That's why we're doing it again.
So we are talking about the 2004 Battlestar Galactica pilot. We'll go over some of the same plot points that we went over in the live stream, but I'm hoping to touch on some new things. We have a new perspective. Casey, who was on last night, has never seen the show, like Elizabeth and I have not. I'm hoping especially for some of your thoughts on the miniseries.
Yeah. Got a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah, so yeah, let's
Okay.
just get into that.
Yeah.
First of all, did you see the 1978 series?
I absolutely did. I own the discs.
Are you on the discs?
Ken is a super fan of Battlestar Galactica.
Did you see that first, like as it was?
Yeah, I watched that as a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
cool.
Let me say as a teenager.
Yeah.
An old teenager. Maybe young adult.
All right, maybe I was 28. So we had a couple people chime in yesterday, like that they enjoyed that series, but it was pretty cheesy.
Oh, very campy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Can't
But-
be in like a good way,
Well,
in like a 70s way.
Yeah, in a 70s way. I don't know that it was really trying to be super campy. I don't think they really knew quite what campy was, you
Right,
know.
right.
But you know, but for the times, the special effects were top notch. You know, people watched it, they're like, "Wow." They really threw everything at it, you know. They hired I think it was John Dykstra, who was the Academy Award-winning visual arts guy for Star Wars.
Oh.
Because it was right hot on the heels of Star Wars, so they hired
yeah, it
him
was
to do their
78,
special
yeah.
effects. But now I did go back and rewatch just to put myself in the mindset. I was like, whoa, it's like this is really bad.
See, I think of like, for some reason that's bringing to mind that old Batman series where they like
The
Was
really
it
old
just-
one.
The original.
the really old. Was that the original
60s,
one?
Yeah, where Batman
Where
is
it would
running
say,
down the
like-
street with a giant bomb and he has to throw it into the ocean.
and it would say like "pow," and like
Yeah.
that was like really
Oh,
campy to me. Is it
yeah,
like that?
no, that's like way over the top, intentional campy.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think they were trying to take a serious stab at it and be in the genre of Star Wars. Although my understanding is this was written, you know, years prior,
Right.
But they'd never really had the right timing to bring it out, and so finally, with the popularity of Star Wars, he's like, now's the time. Let's make it.
Yeah. Well, it lasted for one season.
Yeah.
But it still had a following, right? Like I read that
yeah.
it turned into like comic books and games and, you know, lunch boxes and stuff after that.
Yeah.
But not much on TV until the 2003 miniseries.
Right.
So I want to get your thoughts on this. I read a lot of mixed things. Some people said, of course you watch the miniseries first. It comes before and it lays the groundwork for the 2004 pilot. And then other people said, it's pretty slow and methodical, like introducing the characters and like the broad strokes of this world. So just hop right into the pilot and they don't treat you like you're a fool. Elizabeth and I both felt like we caught up pretty quickly, but there were certainly some things we missed.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on miniseries first or pilot first?
Well, tell me, which episode of Star Wars did you watch first?
4.
4. Well, you missed so much build-up before that. There's no way. You started with 4.
Yeah.
Come on. I missed you missed Jar Jar Binks. You missed a 20-minute pod race. Come on.
Oh,
You gotta watch everything in the proper order.
We can turn this into a complaining about Star Wars podcast if you want. I'm fully on board.
We've done that quite a bit between Bill and Casey.
Casey will be upset he missed out, but we
All
can.
right. So back to your real question. I have introduced other people to the series, and I know that the miniseries is 3 hours long.
Right.
They originally aired it in 2 parts, so it actually was like 2 nights of 2 hours each. So it's a big time commitment to say, oh, I'm going to sit down and watch this thing for 3 hours.
Right.
And I can't remember the people I introduced it to if I like even gave them a break or not, or if we just are plowing right through. I'm pretty sure, when I showed it to my wife, she's like, all right, I'm in, and I'm pretty sure we watched it straight through. We just made sure we devoted the time.
The miniseries.
The miniseries.
Yeah.
It is excellent. For the people who may be complaining about it being slow, I don't know the people, but I would say that maybe they're not into, character development, plot development, storyline development. They do an excellent job with it. I don't think it's like slow and trudging through at all.
Right,
It's very impactful, and a lot of the interpersonal dynamics going on are significant.
Yeah. Some of the people, and this was both people that I know personally and just stuff I've read online. Some people said it's slow, but they still enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
They just didn't think it was necessary to start with that. I saw people say, oh yeah, I watched the first season and then went back and enjoyed it more after having seen the first season.
I think I would have been confused. So what I did this time, knowing that you invited me, is I was like, all right, well, let me try to jump in and watch episode 1, season 1, episode 1, the way you did.
Right.
Even though I already remembered. But I haven't watched the miniseries in a long, long time. So I was like, but let me just try to come from that perspective. And it starts out with previously on Battlestar Galactica. So I'm like, okay, well, season 1, episode 1 really isn't a pilot, but but previously on only gives you these flashing clips and little sound bites, and you can't catch all that. You're watching the visuals and you hear a little sound clip and you don't know what they're talking about. You don't have the backstory to even have a context for it.
Right.
And who really rewinds those and let me watch previously on again, 5 times to really grasp it. You don't know. You just plow ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and most of it centered around this woman in the red dress, number 6. Mm-hmm. And, you catch that the Cylons are at war with humanity, basically. And that's pretty much it, right?
Right.
We see a scene of a guy being left on a planet, and then we see a bunch of scenes of Gaius and number 6 together. Right. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much the whole previously on, right?
And you get a lot more background in the miniseries of Gaius and number 6, and what was going on in that relationship, and what developed, and...
So...
Yeah, I feel like I'd be interested to see that just for the context there.
Yeah.
Because I had all these different ideas of who they were.
We got little
other.
bits of this last night from viewers of the live stream, but what can you tell us about that relationship and the origins of number 6 that wouldn't spoil anything past the pilot? What do you really learn in the miniseries?
That wouldn't spoil it, though.
She wasn't a human, and then they made a model of her, and he already had a relationship with a human version of her?
She is a Cylon.
Right.
And there are 12 different models, and there are copies of those models, and they are made as physical humanoid beings. And so that's what she is. So, she seemed every bit as real as anybody else to him, and they had a real relationship.
Okay. And now or maybe we don't know this at this point after the miniseries and the pilot, is she a figment of his imagination, or he has an implant, or...
You want me to answer that?
Not if it's going to be a spoiler.
Only if the miniseries would help you understand that.
I don't think the miniseries... Well, you know what? I only watched part of the miniseries to get me back in the frame of mind. Okay. I mean, recently, this weekend.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it comes out. I know exactly what it is.
Oh, yeah, of course. All right, yeah. No, because Elizabeth and I both think that we want to watch this.
Yeah.
So I would rather not have it spoiled. I'm just wondering if the miniseries, told you, because clearly she's not physically there. Other people can't see her.
Right.
So we don't know at this point. Is she just in his head? Is he crazy? Is she a virus that's been implanted? Or is
Yeah.
it something else that I'm not thinking of because it's a crazy sci-fi show?
So-
I think I can explain it as there are times when she's physically there, and there are times when she's not physically there.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Interesting.
So, did Maggie like it?
She loved it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure she would use these words, but I think she might. She might say that that's one of her favorite shows of all time.
Wow. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. Cool.
It's an excellent show because it's, going in, it's sci-fi. Mm-hmm. Or you could call it, well, it's a military drama. Well, it's set in space, but it's a military drama.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
And there's a lot of personal drama, not just military. I mean, there's a lot of
Right.
military stuff that seems very realistic. They took a lot of painstaking attempts to keep that real. But the interpersonal dynamics and the difficulties that they encountered, you think, oh yeah, of course, naturally they would be having that problem.
Right, Mhm.
Like
right.
in the pilot or episode 1 called 33, every 33 minutes, and they have to stay awake through all this. They've been awake
Yes.
for 5 days,
Yeah.
Right.
and they're getting edgy, and they look like hell.
Right.
And I think the makeup job was fantastic,
Yeah.
making them really look exhausted. I'm guessing that some of these character actors really took the time to, or didn't take the time to sleep, so that they would be
Right.
extra tired.
Right, right. We should mention, you said Maggie. Ken's lovely wife, Elizabeth's sister, Maggie, was famously on our sitcom character draft episode and lost horribly. So you guys might remember her from that. Sorry, Maggie. So yeah, let's quickly talk about the pilot. Elizabeth and I just talked about it last night. Ken,
Yeah.
you just listened to us talk about it. But for those who are listening and haven't seen this show, here are like the main beats. We start with this fleet of ships, and they're preparing to jump into FTL speed, faster than light. And as Ken just said, these Cylons are showing up every 33 minutes on the dot, like on the stroke of 33, to attack them and try to wipe out the fleet, because these are the last members of humanity left. And sure enough, they show up right on time, and there's this big Cylon mothership, and thousands of smaller ships start just streaming towards the human fleet. And, just in the nick of time, they fix the FTL drives, and they jump, and they appear somewhere else in space. The Cylons are gone, and the commander says, reset the clocks. And you just see all these different characters resetting their clocks to 33 minutes. And then we're introduced to Gaius, who is there with number 6, the blonde woman in the red dress, as I kept calling her yesterday. And they do a lot of hooking up throughout this pilot.
Yes, they do.
It's hot and heavy. But she, while we don't really know what she's doing yet or how she's manifesting herself there, she talks to him like very pointedly, like,
Right.
Eventually you humans are going to make a mistake and we're going to kill you all. And he seems just to accept that.
Oh, his response was, but not for the next 33 minutes.
Right.
And he was just into, well, let's get down and do it right now.
Right.
'Cause I got 33 minutes. And I got nothing else to do.
I got 31 minutes to unwind afterwards.
Let's stop talking.
And then we're introduced to all of these pilots, and like you said, dark circles under their eyes. Katie Sackhoff's character is like nodding off, at the helm of her ship. And we find out they've done this 237 times, which is like roughly 5 days. So they've all been awake. All of humanity has been awake. Well, not all of humanity.
The
but
people working.
Yeah, everyone that's,
Yeah, the
part of this
crew.
military unit has been awake for 5 days straight. Every 33 minutes, they're jumping. These cruisers are going out every 33 minutes to fight off the Cylons. And the commander and who's the bald guy?
Oh, Colonel Ty.
Okay. He's like the second in command.
Right.
Okay.
He's the XO.
So they're talking about a different plan. They have to try something new. So they're talking about splitting up the ship, splitting up the fleet, and then they'll all come back together after 4 jumps to the same coordinates to see if that can throw them off somehow. And then we go over to the president's ship, and we see that the human population is down below 50,000. They just have like a whiteboard basically where they're adjusting the numbers. And she keeps getting a message that this doctor wants to talk to her that's aboard one of the ships. And, Gaius is talking to number 6, and she's like, you have a problem if this doctor comes over and talks, because it's implied, I guess, that he knows that Gaius is a traitor or is working with the Cylons somehow. Mm-hmm. And Then we meet up with the the human soldier. I don't think the United States existed in this universe. On a Cylon occupied planet, and he's running from two Cylons, who are kind of like Terminator style. They're just like chrome with like a red laser light, and he's chasing them through the woods, or they're chasing him through the woods. Sorry, and he has a trap set for them, blows them up, shoots them, and then takes anti-radiation injection, because apparently the humans are using nuclear weapons against the Cylons. That's like their weakness, is what someone told me last night. Is that like quasi right?
Well, all I know is that the Cylons were dropping bombs left and right on, that was the planet of Caprica, and they were dropping bombs all over the place. But I don't know, it could be that what your friend said was accurate. I didn't know that.
And then he sees another version of number 6, the blonde woman, not in a red dress this time. And he starts to aim his gun at her, but then 2 Cylons show up behind him, and he puts up his hands like, oh shit, you got me. Then the fleet makes their next jump. And this time they don't all make it to the next coordinates. A civilian ship with 1,300 people never shows up. And of course, they're in a different spot in space at this time. They just traveled faster than light, so they have no idea what happened. They can't like track it. And so the president makes her adjustment. Now we're down to 47,000 people. So the president is like looking for this doctor who wants to talk to her so badly, but he was on the ship that went missing, of course. And the woman tells Gaius, number 6 tells Gaius that, God's looking out for you, that he got rid of this doctor character. But be careful, because what he gives, he can take away. And there was a lot of discussion about God from number 6. So, Casey was theorizing yesterday, like the Cylons consider themselves the gods now because they're so all-knowing and powerful, or is it some other metaphor? I guess we don't know after the pilot.
Yeah, you don't know after the pilot. But there is a lot of discussion like that, and they are really speaking about from a perspective, of, God, being like a savior, and not just this really generic kind of God. It sounds very familiar.
Right.
So I found that very interesting as well.
So the humans are ready for the next attack, and the clock strikes 33 minutes, and nothing happens. The Cylons don't show up. And so the clock keeps ticking. 45 minutes later, still nothing has happened. And so the commander calls the president and says, let's move into condition 2. Let's let some people start to rest. And then the Olympic carrier, which is the missing ship, shows back up. It shows back up at their coordinates, a little bit of distance off, but they know it's there. It's moving towards them. And so the commander says, I hope I'm wrong, but reset the clocks. So everyone who was about to relax for like 2 seconds has to reset the clocks to 33 minutes again.
It's just like torturous.
Yeah. And we'll talk about it in a second, but like you felt the tenseness of all these scenes. Like, oh man, shit, they're back.
It made me think of like those first few weeks or like maybe months with a newborn. Where you like can never ever get like the rest that you think you remember you had at one point. That's what it made me think of.
You're just nodding off.
But it lasts longer than 5 days. Like
Well, it's lasted for 3.5 years so far for us, and probably longer for you.
Well, what's interesting, you said though, about Commander Adama, saying reset the clocks. You'd think they'd be celebrating this lost ship is back and let's bring them in.
Yeah.
And he's instantly suspicious.
Yep.
And there's similarities back to the original series from the 70s because he was the one who was very suspicious. They were trying to negotiate. They were in the middle of negotiating a peace treaty with the Cylons. They didn't have peace with them for I forget how long, but then they were about to negotiate and he was like, something just doesn't feel right. And so throughout that pilot episode, he was the one who was always watching for these things. So it's consistent.
Okay.
Now.
Oh, okay.
So was the 78 series telling the same story as the beginning of this series, or is it a little bit different?
It's a reimagining. It's got a common storyline, some common characters. And, I don't know if you want to get into those details now or if you want to have a separate time to talk about specifically what's the same and what's different. But it is a reimagining. And, the basic storyline, though, of War with the Cylons. What you didn't see in the miniseries, which isn't a big spoiler, is it starts out they were in a time of peace. They had armistice with the Cylons for 40 years. That's what you start out with, the context in the miniseries.
Okay.
And then everything goes to hell in a handbag.
Right.
You know?
All right. What's up?
No, I'm just like thinking, and I guess we can get into this like towards the end, but like, should we go back and watch the miniseries and then watch the rest of this
Maybe.
again? I'm just excited.
I have a vote on that.
Ken says yes.
What do you say?
Well, I think you should have watched the miniseries first. Anyway. But yes, there is a lot more. There are other things that are going on with certain characters that are in the miniseries. Things that I won't tell you right now because I know you're going to watch the miniseries.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's stuff going on with that president that you have no backstory on.
Right,
It'll
right.
eventually come up. You'll be like, oh, I didn't know that was going on.
And it's all the same cast, right? Because I do love Mary McDonald.
Yeah.
And Colonel Ty. Well, that'll come out. I mean, there's a whole lot more to his character.
Yeah.
Because what you were describing of like the way the miniseries is, you know, just developing characters and stuff, I love that.
Yeah.
And if you're telling me that my sister Maggie, and I know the stuff that she likes, if she loved it, then I think that I would probably like it too. You know?
Yeah. There
'Cause we
wasn't a
have similar
moment. There wasn't a
tastes.
moment she didn't want to watch the next episode.
Wow.
She was ready, willing, and able. Let's go. Let's watch.
So let me tell you, I did this research beforehand. Did we watch the pilot? What about the miniseries? The tiebreaker, of course, was 3 hours versus 44 minutes.
Absolutely.
So we watched the
I knew
pilot
that was a
episode.
cutting point. Plus, I
Yeah.
also have a feeling that maybe Liz doesn't love sci-fi or something like that.
She's mentioned that a few times if you listen to the podcast.
And the challenge has been, is like find some sci-fi that Elizabeth will like. And I think this is it. But I have to tell you, and we're kind of like, I know you want to continue with like the plot we normally do.
It's fine. We're almost
But
done.
like, the name Battlestar Galactica is the nerdiest sounding thing ever. It would never, ever, unless there was this podcast, that would never make me be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to sit down and give that a try. Like, I don't like.
It's not a very approachable name if you're not into sci-fi.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not judging it like, you know, but it's like, even though I respect your opinion, Ken, there was never ever a time, and like, I've known for as long as I've known you that you like Battlestar Galactica, but that was never going to make me want to watch it because the name is so like,
Can I tell you something?
yeah.
2.5 years ago, Ken approached me and asked me to start this podcast. And we've just been biding our time until we could force you to watch Battlestar Galactica.
I actually wanted Battlestar Galactica to be your pilot episode.
I said, no,
Reviewing pilot episodes.
Elizabeth will think it's too obvious. She'll catch on. We need to just bide our time. Long play. So this ship has shown back up, and number 6 is telling Gaius, like, don't worry, the Cylons have infiltrated the Olympic carrier, and you know they've been tracking your ships the whole time, and so for you to survive, that carrier needs to be destroyed. And so somehow a message gets to the president that the doctor that's been trying to reach her is on board this ship and like needs to come on board now. And so Gaius bursts out like, listen to me, trust me, you need to cut off all communication right now. Don't send anything else to them. They're going to send a virus to the ship. They're going to somehow infiltrate the ship. And the commander who's on the phone says, I tend to agree. I think we just sever communications. And so the president does. And they send out, I think, like 3 of their little cruisers, including Katie Sackhoff and her squad leader guy. I didn't catch his name.
Well, I think she was with Apollo.
Apollo, yes, it's Apollo.
Mm-hmm. And those cruisers would be referred to as Vipers.
Vipers. Ooh, that's much cooler than saying cruiser a bunch. So they send a message to the carrier telling them to stop, but it refuses to. It just keeps going right for like the main ship in the fleet. And sure enough, the Cylons show up at 33 minutes after they had reset their clocks. And so the Viper squad finds out that there are nukes on board the ship, and so they're ordered to destroy it. And the president gives this order as Gaius is saying that he repents to God. He's telling number 6. And so the three Vipers are, you know, struggling with this decision, and they're like looking through the windows as best they can. They're like, I don't see anyone inside the ship. Mm-hmm. And so Apollo gives the order, and at first, what is Katie Sackhoff's character's name? Starbuck, yes. We learned that last night. Starbuck.
See, these are the original characters from the 70s, so it's like I lived with these characters. They're reinventing them, but those are the names.
Yeah, and I mean, her initial reaction is, screw you, I'm not going to blow up this ship. There's 1,300 innocent people on board.
Yeah.
But eventually, he gives the order, and they all fire and blow up the Olympic carrier. And back on the Cylon-occupied planet, number 6 wakes up this soldier that they have captive and starts to make out with him. Because I don't know if it's just her or if all Cylons are like super horny.
Or just the 6s.
But she gets blasted in the back and falls down dead, or whatever analog of dead, right?
Yeah.
And he's saved by another soldier, another human soldier. And he's like, what are you doing here? And as they're running away, another iteration of number 6 shows up behind them with Cylons, and she's smirking. So I'm guessing, and maybe we already know this from the miniseries, that other soldier is a Cylon.
It was suspected. They left the miniseries as a cliffhanger, suspecting that there are other sleeper agent Cylons, and they're looking at her. And her name is Boomer.
Okay.
And she's an integral part of Battlestar Galactica.
Okay.
Well, yeah, because we saw her. She was like commanding something. She had like some important job when they were resetting the clock every time, right?
Yeah, I forget exactly what her role is, but the 3 key Viper pilots are Apollo, Starbuck, and Boomer. They're pretty much like a team, and that's the way it was in the original Galactica. The 3 of them are the best Viper pilots, and they're always out there on missions.
And now it's been 24 hours with no Cylon attack. So it seems that the Olympic carrier was the one that they were tracking. And so, someone questions the commander, like, at least you made the right choice, but he's struggling with it. Apollo is struggling with it. I think at one point they even interact with each other, and he says, I gave the command. This isn't on you. And he said, yeah, but I pulled the trigger. And so there's an update on the count, and the president does it on the whiteboard, and then her assistant comes in and says, actually I have one more update. And she goes, okay, how many did we lose this time? And he says, no, add 1. A baby boy was born upon whatever other ship. And so she erases the 2 in 47,972, and she writes a 3. And then the pilot ends as she finally breaks down and starts to cry after her assistant leaves. And that was the pilot to Battlestar Galactica.
I just love that ending. I really do. It's just like, I know it seems like...
You and Casey were both saying you got emotional at the end.
Yeah, because I think she sold it too. It's like they've just been like beaten down for 5 days. And this is like probably the happiest news. Like it's just this renewal. Like, oh, we're still humanity. Like
Right.
Life can still happen, even though whatever is going on right now is awful. And I just, it's just like that connection thing that everybody smiles at a baby. It's like I just loved that ending.
Yeah.
I liked the show. I knew I liked it before that. But that just kind of sold me, where I felt like this is not going to be just like one note. I've just seen a lot of bad sci-fi, and I felt like this just like added this human level to it, where I could relate to the characters and their situations. Because like you've said, and like we discussed the other night, it's sci-fi or it's a military drama set in space.
Right.
And so I like that they really did, that I don't know how like important the role of space obviously plays in it, but I like that it was clearly like a drama about these people and
imagine if
their
they rewrote
relationships.
it. Imagine if they rewrote it as a something based on Earth or a planet. Or it doesn't even have to be sci-fi. So here it is on Earth, and it's a military drama with all of these interpersonal relationships going on and issues, and it ends like it could be set anywhere.
Right.
It really could.
Yeah, I mean, I was impressed that not knowing a lot of the characters, and I watch a really good show, and that's what hooks me, is the characters at first and the interpersonal connections you're talking about. But even before any of that stuff gets established, the tense feeling you get from this like 33-minute thing. Yeah. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
Like, it gets you right away because you can just see it on all of their faces, and like all of the actions are so deliberate about them, like turning the clocks, and like you're just waiting for the next time for the Cylons to show up.
Oh, the pressure they're under, you can totally feel.
Yeah. So I was just impressed with that because even before you cared about who the president was or who Starbuck was, you could feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I grew up in the 80s. I was a huge Star Wars fan as a kid. I haven't been into a ton of like really heavy sci-fi since then, but the sci-fi that I have really enjoyed, like I mentioned it on the live stream, Westworld, I really enjoyed. There's a German language show on Netflix called Dark that I absolutely love. It's my favorite show of the last couple years. They both take place on Earth. They're very sci-fi, but they're both on Earth. So there's no space, there's no aliens, which is, what people typically associate with sci-fi.
Right.
And I think I like them partly because of that, because they're a little bit more realistic, a little bit grittier. But this had that. It was realistic. It was a little bit grittier. Mm-hmm. There wasn't any aliens that you had to like tell yourself in your mind, like, okay, clearly I have to like stretch my imagination a little bit, So I think that made it a little bit easier to connect to and like jump into.
Yeah. The original series had more of the unusual looking aliens, very cheesy looking aliens.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And, they were playing off of, they had a lot of those in the Star Wars, 4, 5, and 6.
Yep.
Well, all of them actually.
Yeah.
And,
they only got cheesier.
but the effects in the original ones released were like so bad. They looked, a lot of those aliens looked ridiculous. Well, these were even worse.
Yeah.
They're so hideous to look at. Just really cheesy.
I want to go back and look up the aliens from that show now.
So is sci-fi, like, is this your favorite genre, or does this just happen to be one of your favorite shows?
Sci-fi is one of my favorite genres.
Okay.
I bounce around, just like music. I bounce around. Like it'll be, for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, I'm really into one genre. Then I'm listening or watching another. Mm-hmm. But yes, I do watch a lot of sci-fi.
Okay.
But out of all the sci-fi that I've seen, TV shows, this is my favorite.
Okay. So, what else is good?
What a loaded question.
I'm just curious because I know that I'm very ignorant to it. I haven't seen that much. I know there's a lot of it. It's not my favorite, so I haven't watched that much of it. And then what we've watched for this podcast has been terrible.
Yeah. We've watched sci-fi for the podcast in both camps of like, we're pretty sure this is going to be terrible, and it ends up being terrible. And this might be interesting, and it ends up being terrible. We haven't found anything up until Battlestar Galactica. We haven't really found anything good.
Yeah, I think that if you watch this through all the way, you will be satisfied that they did a great job. The continuity was really held together.
Yeah.
The whole production team. I listened to some of their bonus features, and the whole production team was really tight knit. There's total collaboration throughout, and the actors even had say in the development of a lot of these scenes. And there's a lot of spontaneous things that happen, and they're like, let's keep that. That works even better.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so they maintained that throughout the entire series.
Nice. So, have you seen like the other well-known sci-fi stuff like Babylon 5 and the Star Trek series? And
well, yeah, I grew up watching the original Star Trek. I watched all of Next Generation. I started watching some of the others. Over time, they started to lose me a little bit. And I watched the recent season of Picard. Excellent show. So I would recommend. If you ever wanted to do another sci-fi that was worthy, I would say Picard is very good.
What about the original Lost in Space? Did you watch that too?
Yeah, I watched it on and off as a kid, but I wasn't a diehard, and I didn't stick with it throughout my life as like, oh yeah, that's something that I loved.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did want to rewatch, or I did want to watch the reboot that came out. And I just haven't gotten to it yet. I understand
Well, then
you guys
you listened
reviewed it,
to
though.
our episode and you were like, never mind. Don't need to watch
I
it.
missed it, so I'm going to have to go listen to it and see what your review was.
I mean, if you're not bothered by like just really over-the-top sensational sci-fi drama, it could be entertaining.
I will watch stuff that it is like that. Just,
Yeah.
and go in for what it is.
Right,
You know,
right.
Like for some of the sci-fi movies, you know, like there's some that are just way over the top, like The Fifth Element with Bruce Willis.
I actually
love that movie.
I like that movie
There
too.
are some people who won't spend 5 minutes with it. In, out, done, don't want to go there. I
saw
love
that
it
in the
because
theater.
it doesn't take itself too seriously. I mean, you look at these
Right, right.
aliens in these rubber suits, and it's like hysterical.
And Chris Tucker was in that one, right?
Yeah.
With the ridiculous hair.
Yeah.
I remember liking that a lot. I don't remember almost anything about it, other than some of the costumes.
I just remember a scene where, like, I can't even remember exactly what was happening in it, but the magic flute was playing in the background. It's like an aria from an opera.
Oh, so it's the opera singer on the stage.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the magic flute.
Yes.
I didn't remember it that well. Okay.
Because I remember I went and I watched it. I went with my friends. It was probably like, I think it was like PG-13, and so we could get into the theater to see it. And we all went to watch this movie, and then my mom was our music teacher, and she taught. I can't remember if we had that lesson on operas before we saw it or if it was after. But I remember we made the connection at some point, like, this was in that movie, or we just learned about this in class. Like,
That
I can't
performance was really spectacular
so
in the
good.
movie. It was, whoa, that's so cool.
Yeah, that has always stuck out to me. I don't even remember anything else about the movie. But
So I was thinking about like how people getting into sci-fi now would view some of these shows and like what the hurdles are, because I think, for the most part, this one was like a little bit more realistic and gritty, but some of the graphics were certainly dated. This was from 2004 and it was on Sci-Fi, so they didn't even have the budget of like a big studio. I don't think anyone is watching Picard cold without being into sci-fi, and there's not a lot of other options other than the non-space alien stuff that I mentioned. Like, Westworld's a huge show now.
Right, yeah.
was Stranger Things considered sci-fi?
Yeah, sci-fi horror. Yeah,
Okay.
sure. I guess any.
Well, I love Stranger Things.
There are different genres of subgenres of sci-fi.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and there's some overlap between genres. I guess sci-fi and horror overlap quite a bit if you want to get technical about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, take Alien. Yeah, that's a
Right.
classic
Yeah.
overlap.
So I think this would be a good one if you can look past the minor graphic stuff and like, the Cylons to me at least were a little bit derivative and like not that interesting. Their design.
I get it, except that I came from a different perspective.
Right.
I came from the 70s show with these clunky robots that, like, why would you even be scared of these things? It's
Right.
Like in the zombie apocalypse when the zombies can barely move and all you have to do is trip and you're dead. It's like, well, just don't trip.
Right.
You're fine. It's like, so these the clunky Cylons walking around.
Yeah.
So at least these updated ones are much more mobile,
Okay.
a lot faster, sleeker looking. So in my opinion, I was much more impressed, but I can understand your perspective. And again, this is 2003, 2004.
Right.
So the effects were different then. And I might be a bit more forgiving, and I just kind of overlooked a lot of that.
Yeah.
But when I went back and I watched the 70s one, it's like, and that was state-of-the-art technology that they had.
Yeah.
The spacecraft, the Vipers going through space, there was a trapezoidal shadow around every one of them where they, kind of cropped it in.
Yeah.
It's like, well, at least they didn't have a model that they were hanging by a string, and they had to, the editors had to edit out the string.
Brush out the string.
So it's evolutions, we're getting there.
Yeah.
That didn't bother me. I got over it pretty quickly. Like
I did too.
the
I noticed it.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, these are, and I knew going in that, hey man, this is 16 years old, and this stuff CGI moves so fast. The
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah.
But I did notice it. It wasn't a huge turnoff, which is what I was saying. It was, if you can look past that little stuff, I think this is a good entry point because it's more realistic and not like, here's fucking Jar Jar Binks in your face for 3 hours.
But I think part of what you were saying before, though, Bill, I think your question would be like, what people just coming in cold, getting into sci-fi, would they watch, maybe some of these older things? And honestly, I don't see where someone coming in cold to sci-fi is going to really want to watch the 70s Battlestar Galactica.
Right.
I could be wrong. I just don't see it. It's unless they're really into cheesy, campy, and like the idea of it's set in the 70s. Let's have some fun with this, or turn it into a drinking game or something. I don't know. They're really pretty bad now.
Yeah, there's just so many like space alien sci-fi shows, and it just seems like such a hard thing for someone to get into if you're not already into it for some reason, because your parents were into it or because you're a little bit older.
Except for something like this that could be a gateway to, oh wait, I could possibly embrace sci-fi or a certain subgenre of sci-fi.
Right.
Because this had a lot of character development, interpersonal development. It made it much more realistic for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think your Maggie endorsements clinched it for Elizabeth.
Yeah, I mean, I was already pretty sure that I would give it a shot. I say that about a lot of shows, and we often complain there's just too many things to watch. But it's I put it on the list of like things I would consider if we had a lot of time. But like, I was just my way of saying like, yeah, I liked it enough to watch it again, maybe. But now I feel like I'll make the time. Like, I think it sounds like you would really like it.
Yeah.
So, like, I think we could, make the time, set it aside, and have this be, like, our next show to get into. Listen, there's not going to be that many shows, like, new shows coming up soon.
You're
so,
right.
That's true.
Unless we just want to watch a lot of animated stuff.
Hey, get into cartoons, everybody, because that's all that's going to be.
The Parks and Rec thing on Zoom was like, a nice... that was, like, everyone wanted that, and to see them again... One time. I don't want to see a show like that again.
Right. A Zoom show?
Yeah, it was good for one time.
Yeah.
Well, can I encourage you guys, because it sounds like you are going to watch, please watch the miniseries first, because...
Right now, just do it.
Yes. Okay, please. Right now. Let's turn the mics off.
Okay.
Well, I'll watch it.
Literally right now.
I'll hold you by the hand. No, Elizabeth, you're going to love the development of some of the characters, like the president, and to see where she was in the beginning of the miniseries. There's a lot of stuff going on with her. A lot of change occurred just in the miniseries to where she is right now. And you don't know the background that was going on with her personally while all of a sudden she's thrust into the middle of this intergalactic war.
Yeah.
You're going to be impressed with the way she held herself together. Colonel Ty, he's got a lot of ghosts in his closet. And you didn't see it in this episode because they're in the middle of battle and he's at the top of his game.
Right.
And you see him... He can be a mess.
Yeah, I'm excited because there was a scene with her where she was on the phone with her and who is it? The colonel? Is that who she was on the phone with?
The commander.
The commander. Mm-hmm. There was something that intrigued me again because like we're coming in, we know that there's this backstory that we don't know. There was just like this little exchange, like this tone in her voice, and she was just like, "No, I trust you." There's something about it that I was like. There is something else there about her. I don't know if it's about them together. Like, it made me wonder what their relationship was, or just like wonder a little bit more about her. So yeah, I think I would go back, watch the miniseries. I would want to watch the pilot again, and then continue. And then watch the show.
I think Ken approves of all this.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I should have brought the discs with me. What was I thinking?
And then maybe for fun, when that's all done. We'll go back and watch the 70s one. Ken has it, so we can.
Well, I think there's also a new reboot, re-implementation, however they're going to handle it, coming out on Peacock,
right?
The NBC thing.
We have Peacock.
We have Peacock, or we will have it. So do you know anything about that? I found very scant details online.
Yeah, I just heard about it, and I guess apparently it's been something that's been being discussed for several months now, and I was clueless. Excuse me, but that's all I know. There's something coming up. I think what I did hear though is I heard an interview with Katie Sackhoff. No, it was number 6. Trisha, oh God, I forgot her last name now. But anyway, she was like, it was like a blow to the gut when we heard this was greenlighted and actually going to happen. Because
really?
the whole cast felt like this was their baby. They were all so invested in it. The whole, like I was talking about, the whole production team, they were all give and take and in it together. And they're like, oh God, someone else is going to do this.
Yeah.
But then the original creator of this 2003-2004 reboot said, I totally give you my blessing to do that. I don't want to go back and revisit it myself because I told my story. I'm done with my story.
Right, right.
If someone else has another envisioning of it, fine, go ahead. I did hear that it takes place in the same context, but it might not be the same characters.
Okay. The showrunner is the same guy who created Mr. Robot.
Ah, right.
Which I never watched, but I've heard a ton of good things about it.
Yeah, same. I've heard, but haven't watched.
Yeah. So, who knows?
I have a question. Did you watch Night Flyers? Did Katie Sackhoff draw you into
yes,
that enough?
No, I didn't have any preconceived notions when I came into this. I did watch your live stream the other night, and I heard the conversation about this as something I'm completely unaware of, and it sounds like something I want to stay way, way, way away from.
Oh,
Yeah,
if you have
it's-
fond memories of Katie Sackhoff in this, don't taint them by watching Night Flyers.
I think she's so good in this. She is really...
I didn't know it was the same person.
That's not to say anything negative about her in Night Flyers, because she had nothing to work with. So
It wasn't her fault.
I can't judge her
yeah.
acting from that. I'll judge
You got to
it.
start somewhere
I'll
anyway.
judge it based on Battlestar. Right.
But it was it was so weird. And I didn't know anything about Battlestar Galactica, but at the time we were watching it, and Bill and Casey were like, oh, she was in, I guess that's how they, I mean, you didn't see it either. But whatever.
No, I
you
just knew
knew
that she was in it,
like,
yeah.
oh, she was in Battlestar Galactica. Which is just like, a very well-known show. And that, that was kind of the context we were going with. Like, oh, maybe this is why they cast her. And just thinking going from like a really well-liked show to this was bad. I mean, it was such a terrible show. She was
Well,
like
it's been a
in
dozen years.
in her underwear. Everyone was like in their underwear.
Everyone was in their underwear.
Oh, wait, what?
It was, and like the main focus, like her whole costume thing was like basically, I don't know if it was like the director wanted to focus on this, or if she has it like in her, I don't know, contract, like really focus on my arms because they're really, really nice. Like she clearly works out a lot, but it was like so in your face that you were like, why don't you ever have sleeves on? It was just.
Can you hand me that wrench?
But anyway, yeah, don't watch that. It's bad.
All right, I think we've rambled on enough. I think this was even less coherent because we just kept talking about different aspects of.
Well,
yeah,
Ken actually knew what he was talking about.
Oh, no, that's
you
all
and
right.
I were less coherent.
Ken, do you have anything to plug?
Oh, anything to plug as in like latest things that I'm watching?
Whatever you'd like. Latest things you're watching, listening to.
Oh, wow.
Who are your best friends right now? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, let's see. Think within the four walls of my house.
Yeah.
A wife, a child, and 2 cats.
Yeah.
No, you know what? We're actually not in the middle of any shows right now. And I was kind of hoping that this might be the kickoff for us rebooting Battlestar together at home.
Oh, okay.
And so, unfortunately, what Maggie and I watched together was the 70s pilot, which turns into freaking 3 hours for a 70s pilot. It's really long. And I had
Wait,
forgotten
what?
that. Yes. It's
Oh my
really long.
gosh.
And
Crazy. I'm not watching it just for that.
no, I have 2 different box sets. One is just the pilot, and it's a 3-hour movie, and I had totally forgotten that. And I didn't know I was sitting her down to watch this. Total cheese for 3 hours. But then in the whole series box set, the pilot is broken up into 3 episodes. It's like, that makes so much more sense.
Appropriately so, yeah. Jeez.
But anyway, so I have a feeling I might have shot myself in the foot by having her watch that. I don't know if I'll be able to springboard her into watching this again.
Have her listen to this episode.
Yeah,
She'll just hear your passion.
She'll remember.
Yeah. When did you guys watch it?
7 years ago, probably.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
I've actually watched it a couple of times. I watched it the first time myself, and then probably showed it to her a couple of years later, I guess.
Okay. Nice. So did you watch this while it was on, or
No,
it was later on?
No, it was later on.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. I think Elizabeth and I are convinced after this.
Yeah,
this
we're gonna
episode.
watch it.
So,
I'm so proud of myself.
All right, everybody. If you have suggestions on shows for us to watch, and we need them desperately because there's fucking nothing new on TV for us to review, email us at trialbypilot@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at trialbypilot. And go on to Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the show, leave a review, and tell a friend.
And thank you, Ken, for being here.
Yep.
I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
And all your insight. And thank you to the Beats for providing our theme music.
Thanks, Beats.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Watching television, watching television. Watching television, watching television.